Welcome to Rayat Online School Education 2021-22, Sadhguru Gargya Maharaj College, Karad. Guidance by Principal Dr. Mohan Rajmane Sir. Standard 11, Subject Bookkeeping and Accountancy. Myself, Patel Madam from SGM College, Karad. As in the last lecture, we have started the new chapter, Journal. In that, we have seen introduction, meaning of and importance and utility of documents. In the last lecture also, we have seen the voucher. What do you mean by a voucher? Two types of voucher, internal voucher, external voucher. The last lecture, continuing, we will see the next voucher, which is the journal voucher. In the last lecture, voucher, internal voucher, external voucher is teach to you. Today we will see what do you mean by a journal voucher and the specimen of a journal voucher. Journal voucher is basic original voucher on the basis of which the transaction should be journalized in journal book. So, what is journal voucher? It is the original voucher, or you can say it's a basic voucher. And on that basis only, the transactions are journalized in the journal book. So, journal voucher plays a very, very vital role because that is considered as original voucher, and also on that basis, the transactions are journalized into the proper journal book. Further is the specimen of a journal voucher, or you can say it's a format of a journal voucher. You can see the format in front of you. Journal voucher, in the center the name is there. On the left hand side is the name of the firm. Then is the voucher number, transaction number, date. Then the name of debit account, which account is debited, name of the credit account, which account is credit. Then it is divided further into two columns, particulars, and the next is amount. Amount, then is amount in words, rupees, approved by, authorized by, signed by. This is the correct format of the journal voucher or specimen of a journal voucher. After journal voucher, the next is the cash voucher. Now, cash as a name only, you can understand by the name when amount is paid in a cash. So, first we will see the meaning of it. The evidence of cash payments and cash receipt is called cash voucher. So, it is a proof when you pay the amount in cash, you get a cash receipts. It is said as a cash voucher. When the amount is spent in cash, one should prepare a voucher. If any document from the payee is obtained, then that itself can be treated as a voucher too. It may be prepared for the payment. An external document may be attached to the same. It is a document on the basis of which entries will be made in the cash book. So always remember the evidence of cash payments as well as cash receipts is called as a cash voucher. So when you spend the amount in a cash, one should always prepare a voucher. Okay, so it is a document on the basis of which entries will be made in the cash book, because when you spend money in a cash and a voucher is prepared, so entries will be directly made in the cash book. Further is the format or specimen of a cash voucher. You can see the format in the center. It is written as cash voucher. Then the name of the company is written, Nakul and Company, example, Bandra Road, Mumbai. The left hand side is voucher number. The right hand side is the date. Then is GSTI.N number, which is very important to write. Then is pay to dash, on account of dash, debit account dash, total rupees dash only, amount dash, and the column is made for amount. Then is prepared by dash, signature will be there, passed by dash, receiver signature. Okay, this is the specimen of a cash voucher. Cash voucher plays a very vital role because always from this the amount is going to be returned in the cash book. Okay, so we have seen up till now the voucher. First we have seen what do you mean by voucher, internal voucher, external voucher. Then we have seen the journal voucher, and the fourth one we have seen the cash voucher. The specimen of journal voucher we have seen in the last, and now we have seen the specimen of the cash voucher. Further we will see about the tax invoice. What do you mean by a tax invoice? Tax invoice is a document which is prepared by a seller to inform the buyer. Okay, so always it is prepared by whom? Seller. And to whom it is prepared to inform the buyer. About what? The quantity supplied, rates, terms of payments at which goods are supplied, trade discount if any it is allowed, CGST and SGST, and the total amount payable by him. Always tax invoice plays a very important role because it is prepared by the seller to inform the buyer about how much is the quantity supplied, what are the rates, what are the terms of payment, whether the trade discount is allowed or not. Then about GST, which is divided into 2 parts, CGST, SGST, and the total amount fully payable by him. It is a purchase invoice or inward invoice for the buyer. Always remember, for the buyer who is purchasing the goods, for him or her, it is inward invoice, or you can say purchase invoice. And for sale invoice or outward invoice for the seller. So for the buyer, it is an inward invoice. You can also say purchase invoice. And for the seller, it is sale invoice, or you can say outward. Of course, your seller sells the good. From that point of view, if you think it is sale invoice, buyer purchase the goods, it will be purchase invoice. Why it is said outward invoice for seller? Because of course outward the goods are going to go, and inward invoice for the buyer. Entries in the purchase books are made on the basis of the purchases invoices received. So when entries in the purchase book will be related when you get the purchase invoice. When you receive the purchase invoice, entries will be made in the purchase book. Entries of course will be made in the sales book when you get the sales invoice. Of course. So seller are going to whenever he sells, he is going to get the sale invoice. Sales books are prepared on the basis of sales invoice. Tax invoice is sent by a seller to a buyer when goods are supplied by him. Always remember, this is the most important point, that this tax invoice is sent by a seller to a buyer when goods are supplied. Also prepared, remember, by a seller. Why? To inform the buyer about the quantity supplied, rates, terms of payments, if trade discount is allowed or not, if about the GST which is divided into CGST, SGST, and the total amount payable by him. Okay, so that was the meaning of tax invoice. Further, we will see the specimen of tax invoice. Okay, the specimen which you can see in front of you. In the center, as usual, the name, that is a tax invoice, will be written. Then about the shop name like Sunil General Stores, shop number 5, Lakshmi Road, Pune. On the left hand side is cash bill number. Then it will be GST I.in number. Then same line on the right hand side is date. Then come to the left hand side again. The name is there. That means the customer's name. Then will be the address of the customer. Okay. Then you can see the further columns. Columns are prepared to give more details about the tax invoice. First is the serial number. Then is the particular, HSN number, the rate, the quantity, the taxable amount, GST, which is divided into CGST percentage, SGST percentage, and the total amount. Okay. Then on the right hand side, you will write the bank details. Bank details such as bank name, bank, IFSC code, your account number, then the account number, and then the signature is there. Okay, on the same line of the bank related details on the left hand side is the rupees in words. Okay, this is a specimen of a tax invoice. Okay, so always remember tax invoice, which is a document prepared by a seller to inform the buyer about the details which I said you right now: quantity supplied, rates, terms, CGST, SGST. Okay, and if trade discount is given, etc. And always it is sent by a seller to the buyer when the goods are supplied by him. Okay, so we have seen the tax invoice as meaning, as well as we have also seen about the specimen of tax invoice. Further, we will see about the credit memo. What is a credit memo? We will see. A credit memo is also known as an invoice or a bill. So, when goods are purchased on a credit basis, a seller prepares a credit memo. By the name itself, you can understand. Credit memo, when it is there, when the seller sells the goods to a buyer on credit, then the seller prepares a credit memo. Okay? And send it to the customer along with the articles. That means if the seller is sending the goods to the buyer and the buyer has purchased the goods on a credit, then it is obviously that seller is going to prepare a credit memo, and along with the articles or goods, he is going to send the customer the credit memo too. When same memo is issued to a buyer, it is called as inward invoice. And the same is treated as outward invoice by the seller. Okay, so same memo when issued by the buyer, when issued to the buyer, it is called inward invoice. And the same is treated as outward invoice by the seller. Therefore, a credit memo is what is a credit memo? It's a statement given by a seller to the customer providing the details of goods sold for which certain amount becomes due from the customer. Of course, yes. Now only as I said you, why a seller prepares a credit memo? Because the buyer has purchased the goods on a credit. Or you can say seller has sold the goods on a credit. At that time, a credit memo is always prepared by a seller, which is a statement given by a seller to the customer, providing the details of goods sold for which certain amount becomes due from the customer. In the purchase book and the sales book, entries are made on the basis of invoice. So, of course, yes, in the purchase book as well as in the sales book, entries are always made on the basis of invoice. Okay, that was a credit memo, also known as invoice or bill. Okay, so always remember, when a credit memo is prepared, when the buyer purchases the goods on a credit from the seller, or the seller sells the goods on a credit. At that time, seller prepares a credit memo, which is a statement given by the seller to the customer, providing all the details of goods sold for which certain amount becomes due from the customer. Okay, that was about the credit memo meaning. Further, we will see about the receipt. Receipt. What do you mean by a receipt? And then we will see the specimen of a receipt. So today in modern business, to increase the profit, the businessman sells goods on credit. But the payment will be made on future date. Of course, yes, whenever you sell the goods on a credit, Okay, the payment is postponed to a future date. Okay, so at the time of making payment, the receiver is required to acknowledge the payment. For this purpose, a document is prepared which is called as a receipt. On the basis of this document, entries will be made in the cash book. Okay, so always remember, when every businessman wants to increase the profit, he sells the goods on a credit and the payment is made in the future date. But at the time of making the payment, the receiver is always required to acknowledge the payment. For this purpose, a document is prepared which is called as a receipt. On the basis of this, document entries will always been made in the cash book. Okay, that was the meaning of a receipt. Further, we will see the specimen of a receipt. You can see the receipt specimen. Of course, like same in the center, you should always write the name of the specimen, what it is prepared. If it's a tax invoice, you will write tax invoice. If it's a receipt, you will write receipt. If it's a cash voucher, you can write cash voucher. In the center, the receipt is written. Below that, Balaji and Sons, Somwarpet, Nasik, example is given. On the left hand side, you have to write the receipt number. Below that, you will write the date. Then you will come down to the next line. On the left hand side, you will write GSTIN number. This is very important. Then you will write received with thanks from Messrs dash a sum of rupees dash by cash oblique check oblique DD oblique NEFT oblique RTGS. If it is paid by a check or it's a cash or it's a DD demand draft or it's a NEFT or it's a RTGS. Then is number dash dated dash drawn on dash. Next line, in part oblique full payment of bill number dash. Then on the left hand side is the rupees column. Below that you have to write subject to realization of check. And on the left hand side, right hand side, down you will have a stamp and you will write the receiver, you will sign, receiver signatures will be there. Okay, this is the format of a receipt. Okay, so here today we started with the journal voucher. First we have seen the meaning of journal, then we have seen the specimen of journal voucher, then we have seen cash meaning, cash voucher meaning, specimen of cash voucher, then we have seen the meaning of tax invoice, then we have seen the specimen of tax invoice, what do you mean by credit memo, and the last point we all have seen was the meaning of a receipt and the specimen of receipt. Okay, enough for today's lecture. Thank you very much.